Do we take it that you and PK, as he is known, will be launching your own political national party either before or after the Lok Sabha elections?
That is something that is likely, but I will not say it is definitive.
Not just because it concerns you, but because there is talk that Nitish Kumar is seeking to be the convener of the opposition alliance. So it's important to talk about Nitish Kumar.
I think at this stage, he is probably playing the last song of his political career. No, I don't think that the India alliance itself is viable. So the question of who will lead it is, to my mind, quite irrelevant.
And why is
what Mamata Banerjee and Arvind Kejriwal wanted to say was that they prefer Mallikarjun Kharge rather than Rahul Gandhi to be the convener or face of this alliance.
How would you describe Rahul Gandhi?
I think he's well intentioned.
How would you describe him as a politician?
As a politician, I think that he fails the political acumen test.
Fails. Pavan Varma, you have been in public life in two different avatars. I'm not counting your avatar as an author, as a diplomat and as a politician. Which has been more difficult?
None have been difficult, actually. I enjoyed my service as a diplomat greatly. And I took a conscious decision to resign to join politics. I was then ambassador in Bhutan, as you know. And I resigned because I felt that I needed a wider canvas to be able to express my views, which are somewhat constrained as a bureaucrat diplomat. And I've never regretted it. It's been a phenomenal journey, not without its ups and downs, but also its great rewards, including the freedom to speak as I think about what happens in the country and what needs to happen. So, the moment I resigned, as you know, the same month, I became a cabinet minister, the advisor to the chief minister. Then I went to the Rajya Sabha. I was the national spokesman, general secretary. I left the JDU on the basis of not a personal problem with Nitish, but on principle, on his support for the CAA NRC, hyphenated. And as you are aware, Prashant Kishor and I were expelled on the same day by the same letter. And subsequently, I've been in public life. I joined the TMC. Mamata ji was very keen that I do. She made me the vice president of the party. But after a while, very amicably, I resigned, and so I am right now in the happy position of not being in any political party, but being very much in politics.
Your introductory remarks have given me a lot to ask you about. Let's start with the most basic question. You, as we all know, are close to Prashant Kishor. Prashant Kishor is currently on the ground in Bihar, traveling across the strait, trying to build a independent profile for himself as a politician and not a political consultant. Do we take it that you and PK, as he is known, will be launching your own political national party either before or after the Lok Sabha elections?
That is something that is likely, but I will not say it is definitive. Because
and a national party, not a Bihar party.
Of course, if we launch our own party, and the name Jan Suraj is already quite well known, it will be a national party. But the beginning is being made in Bihar, and that is a conscious decision that Prashant took, that he would like to end his role as a political strategist. He's young, he's just about 46. He belongs to Bihar. He is very related to the grassroots of Bihar, comes from a small town in Buxar. And the Padyatra that he's doing now, for a lot of observers, it seems he has gone into oblivion from being so high profile and in the news all the time. But what he's doing is nothing short, in my view, and it's not because he's a personal friend, is a sadhana. For the last almost 18 months, he has been living in the village, walking 15 to 18 to 20 kilometers a day through the extreme heat of Bihar and the rains and the winter. And it's a very organized yatra.
So why are you thinking of national politics, both of you, instead of Bihar politics?
No, because the idea that we wish to project, propagate, consolidate, strengthen is not one that is restricted to Bihar. Of course, it's most relevant to Bihar at the moment, because Bihar, as you know, is the poorest state in the country. For 30 years of Nitish and Lalu, Bihar is exactly where it was 30 years ago in relative terms. Bihar needs change. Bihar needs parivartan and a foundational change. And I think, from what I know, and I have visited his camps a couple of occasions, he is trying to make that change so that Bihar comes out of this vicious circle of poverty, deprivation, and unemployment. So that is an immediate goal. But the ideas that we believe in are national.
Right. So you have seen politics from the inside of two parties now, the JDU, the Trinamool Congress, and you might well be on your way to formally launching a third party of your own. Let's start on that day when you and PK get expelled from Nitish Kumar's Janata Dal United. Why I remember that day so well is I remember reporting the story that you had a meeting with Nitish Kumar and you were urging him, both of you at that time, to leave the NDA. He doesn't do so. He expels the two of you. A few months down the road, he does exactly what you'd asked him to do. Did he, in a way, take you by surprise? Or does it make no difference to you now what Nitish Kumar does? And I start there, not just because it concerns you, but because there is talk that Nitish Kumar is seeking to be the convener of the opposition alliance. So it's important to talk about Nitish Kumar.
You see, I never speak publicly in a manner which is uncomplimentary to Nitish Kumar, because he was my first leader. He did a lot for me. He gave me a lot of respect.
But he also threw you out.
Yes, but that was a difference on principle. But when I joined Nitish Kumar in 2013 January, he was Prime Ministerial material. And that is not the reason why I joined him. It was his personal rectitude, his administrative acumen, his image of having transformed Bihar, his personal credentials in terms of a thinker and educated politician. And he had the potential, as one Atal Bihari Vajpayee predicted, of being at the helm of affairs in politics.
And today?
And today, I think he himself has squandered the legacy which he should normally have been heir to by so many frequent changes of his own political fealties, loyalties. He took a stand in 2013 that he would oppose a BJP led by Narendra Modi. It was a stand taken on principle. You can agree with it or not agree with it. And we who were with him supported him on the basis of principles and ideology as he espoused it. Then overnight, frankly, without consulting any of the National General Secretaries, and I was one of them, he switched to the NDA that I believe that the BJP being what it is, it's an electoral machine, it's an ambitious party, it's led by a charismatic leader, it's expansionist, that it is possible that the BJP may use him as an accessory, but not allow him his previous role where he was the boss and the BJP was the, let us say, subordinate partner. He joined the very people, like he had joined the BJP earlier, whom he had been so critical of when he had joined the BJP. So he joined Lalu and Tejasvi. Now, in all these flip-flops, two things suffered. One is his personal credibility as a leader who had at one time a reputation, Barkha, of resigning to take moral responsibility. You know, he was a railway minister.
Yeah.
And he resigned, and Atulji had to spend a lot of time persuading him to come back. Here was a person who, to remain chief minister, that is being said by his more uncharitable critics, changed sides so frequently that I think somewhere in the eyes of the people of Bihar, he lost credibility.
He became Paltu Chacha, as they called him.
Well, there were many appellations given, but
you know, this was the same man of whom Ramchandra Guha once wrote a piece saying this is India's Barack Obama.
yes, he could have been.
How would you describe him today?
I think at this stage, he is probably playing the last song of his political career. I feel sorry when I say this because I have great respect for him otherwise as a human being, and we have remained friends even after I was expelled.
You don't think of going back to him?
No,
to the JDU, because now it had taken the position that you and Prashant Kishor had urged him to take.
No. You see, the point is not that. Point is he has not asked me to come back.
And if he did?
Even if he did, I believe that what is happening in Bihar now has left Nitish Kumar isolated. It's the BJP or the RJD. And there is a third force coming up, which I believe is what is happening out of the glare of cameras, but happening on the ground in the form of Prashant Kishor's Padyatra, which is transformative in nature and an extremely arduous one. I mean, a person who says that I will not sit on a motorcycle or a car, but walk through Bihar, and has stayed there continuously, mingling with the people and doing so in an organized manner. You see, there's a difference between a Bharat Jodo Yatra, where you traverse the land, and there is a difference between an organized yatra, where there is a team that consolidates after you have gone through one district, prepares for you for the next one, and a personal interaction with people about their real problems and the means to solve them.
I have a lot of questions on Prashant Kishor and what your plans with him might be.
I'm not here to speak about Prashant Kishor.
But you didn't wait for my but. But let's stay focused right now on Bihar and Nitish Kumar and the national political picture. Your other former colleague, Mamta Banerjee, at an India Alliance meeting, moots the idea of Mallikarjun Kharge as a prime ministerial contender. You would think the Congress would say, yes, great idea. The Congress doesn't say that. Instead, we hear two things. One, that Nitish Kumar is sulking. Two, that he's picked an argument with the DMK leader. There's an argument between them on the use of Hindi. Rahul Gandhi then dials Nitish Kumar. All of this is happening with the reports that Mr. Kumar is seeking to be the convener of the India Alliance. My question to you, with all your experience of having seen two parties and also now being in the thick of politics, how do you see the India Alliance and Nitish Kumar's last song, as you call it, to lead this alliance? His bid, his attempt?
No, I don't think that the India alliance itself is viable. So the question of
Who
will
leads it?
lead it is, to my mind, quite irrelevant.
And why is it not viable?
I'll tell you why. By the time they started to work for opposition unity, it was already June 2023.
Yeah.
So the first question is that what were they doing since 2019? Secondly, since then, I can only call it a suicidal pirouetting on the precipice. By which
Strong words.
I mean...
So you're not just saying that it is inconsequential. You're saying it's politically suicidal.
No.
Almost.
The aim of the project is doomed, to my mind, and I can be wrong now, is doomed to failure because of A, the late start, as I said, and B, the inexplicable lack of follow-up. See the sequence. They meet in Patna in June. A serious attempt at actually forging a coherent and electorally efficient opposition alliance would have seen 1 week after that the formation of a secretariat, the announcement of a common minimum program, the setting up of a core group to work out possible seat adjustments. Although that itself is irrelevant, because if you look at the alliance, actually it is one candidate of the opposition against the BJP. What is happening in West Bengal? It's a TMC fighting the BJP.
That's right.
In Tamil Nadu, it's the DMK fighting the BJP.
Yeah.
In Delhi, it's basically AAP. And in so many other states. So, and in 250 seats, or even 300, it's the Congress fighting the BJP. So it's one party against the other. So this one candidate, one party makes little sense. In UP, it's Akhilesh Yadav who's fighting the BJP. The other parties don't exist. So, but even if that was the case, a core group to work on possible seat adjustments. None of this was done. After 4 weeks, they meet in Bengaluru. Again, there's a photo op, there's a dinner, and nothing happens. Then 5 weeks later, they meet in Mumbai, where exactly the same thing happens. And meanwhile, when I talked about the precipice, what I meant was that we are coming closer and closer to the actual elections.
Right.
In addition, the pirouetting part was that far from a show of unity, the internal rifts within this alliance became more and more public. And the lack of a face made even that pirouetting a little uncontrollable.
Do you think the Congress should have backed Ms. Banerjee belatedly as the India Alliance reorganized itself to meet? Probably because the Congress hoped to have done better in the assembly elections where it did not, and therefore it suddenly remembered the India Alliance again, as Omar Abdullah said. But when Ms. Banerjee proposed Mr. Kharge's name, do you believe that the Gandhis should have embraced that moment, or do you believe that it was already too late?
I don't know if they didn't embrace them.
Well, publicly nothing has been said.
On the other hand, nothing has been said against it also.
But this kind of silence 6 months from the elections?
Yeah, I think that what Mamata Banerjee and Arvind Kejriwal wanted to say was that they prefer Mallikarjun Kharge rather than Rahul Gandhi to be the convener or face of this alliance. And I'll tell you one thing, although to my mind now it's all redundant because it's too late in the day. Mallikarjun Kharge is an able and experienced leader, grassroots, successful politician, a Dalit, a good administrator. So if these decisions were taken a year earlier, a year and a half earlier, and if Mr. Kharge was given his head to move forward, it may have been a different story. But you don't win elections on the possibility of what may have happened. You are seeing what is happening right now.
So the only issue that has come from the opposition that is purportedly its own issue and not defined vis-a-vis the BJP was the issue of the caste census. Nitish Kumar starts it, Rahul Gandhi picks it up, makes it a big deal, and now it has effectively lapsed. Now, I connect this to a column you wrote, where you actually questioned the efficacy of reservations. You said reservations were being used as a substitute for, I'm summarizing you, for effective governance and so on. Why did the caste census issue, the attempt to remandalize Indian politics, bomb?
I'll tell you frankly, first of all, I never said I'm against reservations or affirmative action.
Yeah.
In a country where inequality or discrimination has been institutionalized for centuries, democracy has no meaning until you empower the underprivileged. And that can be done through affirmative action. That was the intent of the Constitution when there was a reservation given for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes who needed it and continue to need it. The real milestone in expanding the affirmative action process came with the Mandal Commission report. And that too, in many ways, helped the other backward classes. Now, to try and repeat something which has already happened through another caste census, history repeats itself as tragedy or farce.
Right.
The Congress did a survey, a socio-economic survey in 2011. Why did it not release the report? And today, I'm sorry to say, the caste census has become a substitute for the lack of administrative competence and good governance. You have been in power. Let's take the instance of Bihar for 30 years.
Yeah.
Those who are espousing the caste census. That caste census has no legal validity. The only census that has legal validity is the national census, which was last carried out in 2011, did not happen in 2021. You do a caste census unilaterally. There are no peer evaluations of it. And do you need to be told exactly what is the strength of each community to be able to provide them in the last 30 years better roads, potable drinking water, less poverty?
But it's not as if the BJP doesn't do caste engineering. If you look at the choices of chief ministers in the three states, again, defying expectations, a marginalization of Shivraj Singh Chauhan. Vasundhara had been marginalized during the Rajasthan campaign. But you see a tribal leader in Chhattisgarh, you see an OBC leader in Madhya Pradesh, you see a Brahmin in Rajasthan. So it is not as if your incumbent party is not, among other cards, playing the caste card.
First of all, Barkha, a caste census and the need for it.
Yes.
And using a caste matrix as one of the instruments for electoral strategizing.
That's right.
They're two different things. The BJP realized early on that its essential vote base is narrow, largely consisting of the upper caste. The Congress's base in the past consisted of, let us say that, as an example, like Brahmins, Dalits, Muslims. The BJP realized that although it had come to power with an absolute majority with a 31% vote, and later with a 37% vote, it was inadequate. And one of the reasons why it got an absolute majority was the complete failure of the Congress party. So the BJP consciously planned to widen its support base, and that is why you see that a very careful and sustained attempt was made to co-opt the single largest community in most states, which are the OBCs.
That's right. And additionally, in the 3 assembly elections, Dalits and scheduled tribes have voted in greater numbers for the BJP.
Correct. Again, A, for lack of alternative, and B, because the BJP has consciously tried to reach out to them. You see, the RSS was earlier largely an upper caste Brahmanical party. And the BJP's vote base was the upper caste, let's say Rajput, Brahmin, Bhumihar, Kayast, and so on and so forth. Now, they are an efficient political machine. They realized that with an OBC prime minister, this is the chance and occasion to widen that support base, and they have done it. Look at the opposition. I mean, let me give you the example of UP. Akhilesh Yadav is taking on the BJP, thinking that with 8%, 9% Yadavs, and say 19%, 20% Muslims, you can beat the BJP. You can't. You need a third constituency. That had to be, for instance, the Dalits, Mayawati. Now, Mayawati may be under pressure for whatever reason, or a little aloof from politics, or less involved earlier. But Akhilesh Yadav lost in 2014. He lost in 2017. He lost in 2019. And after 2019, the BJP began to work the very next day for the 2022 elections. From Panna Pramukhs to the whole lot. Akhilesh is well-meaning. He's a good leader. I know him well. I have respect for him. But during COVID, he was away from UP for a considerable length of time. For valid reasons, perhaps. He was in London, in the United Kingdom. He came back some months before the elections. And you have not co-opted a third constituency.
That's right.
I mean, you could have sat at the footsteps of Buaji and even said, you be the CM, but we have to fight together. I'm giving you a hypothetical example. Maybe she would not have agreed. But the attempt should have been made, because when you say caste engineering, it is a recognition of the fact that castes do matter in the ultimate matrix you build for electoral efficacy. But it does not validate the perpetual
emphasis on it.
On caste.
When Rahul Gandhi stands up, as he did recently, and says, "Ye vichar dhara ki ladai hai. This is an ideological battle." What does that statement say to you when it comes on behalf of not just the Congress party, but the India Alliance today? To frame this as an ideological battle.
It is a vichar dhara ki ladai in many ways, not because Rahul Gandhi says so.
But what is the vichar dhara that unites Mr. Gandhi with Mr. Thackeray?
No. I'm not talking of the constituents of the India Alliance. But there is in evolving India, in a democratic India, there is a battle for ideologies. There was the original.
What is the battle? Define the battle.
There is the original Congress idea.
The big tent.
The big tent, the more inclusive. It had its distortions, including minority appeasement for vote bank politics, but a broader picture which included the notion of a multicultural, plural, multi-religious nation living in harmony, an inclusive India, even though it's a much maligned word, a secular India, that kind of India, and the kind of politics we are seeing now, where religion has become a very divisive factor.
You call it the old idea of the Congress. What about the current Congress?
The current Congress espouses the old idea, but has become a very inefficient vehicle to actually project and implement it, certainly in electoral terms. So, therefore, you need the idea of the Congress, but the current vehicle, and I'm sorry to say, the current leadership, in my view, is incapable of the job.
What ails the current vehicle and the current leadership?
I'll tell you, as far as the Congress party is concerned, it is still a pan-Indian party. It has a footprint across the nation. And any party of the stature and antiquity in democratic politics of the Congress will have it. It was the Banyan party. But you cannot build an edifice of electoral success on an absent foundation. The party organization has withered away. It does not exist or exists in terms where it is just not able to sustain the idea of the Congress in terms of electoral winnability.
That's the structure of the Congress. What ails the leadership? You said both the leadership and the organization to
You
be
see,
the problem.
when I say leadership,
You mean the Gandhis?
I mean the Gandhis. I don't mean it in a pejorative way. I just feel...
How would you describe Rahul Gandhi?
I think he's well-intentioned.
How would you describe him as a politician?
As a politician, I think that he fails the political acumen test.
Fails.
He fails it, and I'll tell you why. He's well-intentioned. He's also very often fearless. But to be a political leader is a full-time job now in this country, especially when you are facing an electoral machine like the BJP. B, you have to do something that is more than the normal. You have to revamp.
He would argue the yatra was that.
No, I think the Bharat Jodo Yatra, A, was done too late, and B, a yatra by itself is not enough.
Yeah.
Look at the results in the states through which a lot of the yatra passed in the recent assembly elections.
Well, they would argue they did well in Telangana. That's what they would argue.
In
right?
Telangana, they did well, and perhaps the organization and the leadership there, in the form of Revant Reddy, was powerful, because when there are strong local leaders, like in Karnataka, it happened. The advantage for the Congress was that the BJP government in Karnataka was extremely inept and tainted in perception. In Telangana, 10 years of KCR, although he has done a lot for the state, by the way, there was a certain fatigue factor. Now, if that fatigue factor had led to a strong momentum for change, then we had predicted that the Congress will win with a comfortable majority. If that momentum for change was not that strong, then KCR could have scaped through.
Right.
But obviously that momentum for change was strong. So what I'm trying to say to you is that in the case of Congress, there are ad hoc successes in states, partly due to local leadership efforts, and partly due to sometimes what the incumbent government's failures are. But on a pan-Indian basis, the Congress has refused to understand or recognize the importance of reinventing itself.
Now, one of the challenges, not just for the Congress, but particularly for the Congress, is how to respond to Hindutva. There's Kamal Nath with very visible politics, Hindu politics played in Madhya Pradesh that does not work for it. Arvind Kejriwal in the Delhi elections presented himself as a kind of miniature version, some said, of Mr. Modi, with nationalism and his Hinduism worn on his sleeve. What is the answer? And I ask you this because I don't know not everybody in our audience is well acquainted with the fact that much of your writing has actually looked at Hindu philosophers, at Hindu philosophy. You have spoken in the past about reclaiming Hinduism, right? You have written an entire book on, a man you call the greatest Hindu philosopher of our time. So talk about this phase that India is going through, where 10 years ago, a party spokesperson of the BJP would not have said, we are a Hindu nation. Today they will say that, and there will be very little pushback to it.
You see, the BJP has a clear narrative, and it's not new, which is Hindutva, which means a strong bias towards the reclamation of a certain cultural history, which is a valid goal, the correction of certain distortions in the narrative of history, which is a valid goal, and the correction also of certain perceived wrongs towards the Hindus, which is not entirely wrong. Please understand.
Which is not entirely wrong.
No.
Give me an example of this wrong towards Hindus.
I'll tell you. I'll give you 3 or 4 examples.
Okay.
Before the independence, Mahatma Gandhi's backing of the Khilafat movement. He was naturally, Gandhiji was Gandhiji. He had done it to preserve Hindu-Muslim unity.
And he was also a deeply believing Hindu, quite distinct from Nehru, for example. Right.
So, he against a common enemy, which was the British. But there were many in his own party, including Dr. Ambedkar, who said, what is the need to support a pan-Islamist movement, especially when in Turkey itself, the caliphate had been abolished. Then there were the Mopla riots, which were absolutely heinous in terms of the massacre of the Hindus. It created outrage, but the Congress played it down. I'm telling you what has built up this backlash. In 1947, soon after that, the Somnath temple, which houses one of the 12 Jyotirlings, it's a very sacred spot for Hindus.
Yeah.
The Somnath temple had been vandalized, looted, plundered, destroyed 16 times in the past. And therefore, the attempt was that now you would renovate and build it. Now, Mahatma Gandhi supported the idea, but he said, let it be done by a public trust rather than the government. And it was renovated accordingly. And Dr. Rajendra Prasad, as the president, was invited to be present. Panditji, again well-intentioned, in the aftermath of partition, felt that that would be an act which would in some way mar the secular image of India, which I believe is a wrong definition of secularism for India. Dr. Rajendra Prasad can go to the inauguration of a temple. He can also go to a church. He can also go to a masjid, because our secularism does not put into watertight compartments politics and religion, but says respect all faiths.
Yes.
So that created a backlash. Then in 1952, you reform the Hindu personal laws through the Hindu Bill Code.
Yeah, Hindu Code Bill, yes.
Hindu Code Bill. Again, there was a feeling that if you are attempting
to codify
the directive principles talk of a uniform civil code or making the beginning towards that goal, why only the Hindus? So that created a backlash. Then to just fast forward, Shah Banu case. Here was a balanced, reasonable, progressive judgment of the Supreme Court, which on completely wrong advice, although Rajiv Gandhi was not in favor, I believe, of the ordinance, but on wrong advice that this would somehow alienate the support of the Muslim minority in electoral terms. You overruled the Supreme Court judgment. And now let me give you the last example which will explain to you the confusion in the opposition to Hindutva. The Ram Temple.
Yeah.
The earlier attempt, the movement that Mr. Advani launched as the Rath Yatra, was obviously probably based out of Astha or faith, but also it was a masterstroke to revive the BJP after it had been nearly decimated in 1984.
Yeah.
To that extent, it succeeded.
Yeah.
But the manner in which the Karsevaks took the law into their own hands and demolished the masjid was something about which the top BJP leadership of that time expressed deep regret.
Yes.
After which, the temple has been built not by the BJP,
By a Supreme Court verdict.
by a Supreme Court verdict. So therefore, this temple is not that of the BJP. Now, a temple has been built following due process by a judgment of the Supreme Court. Look at the complete confusion in the opposition ranks.
Yeah.
Some are saying it's anti-secular. Some are saying the BJP is doing it for political goals. No doubt. They could be right.
I mean, it is going to be the BJP's moment. It is going to be Modi's
Yes, because
moment.
one thing is that to some extent they will take credit because they were at the forefront of fighting for the temple.
Yes.
But to say that they are politicizing this event, the way to diffuse or dilute that narrative of the BJP was to say, this is a temple sanctioned by the Supreme Court and Sri Ram belongs to all of us and we will happily participate in it whether invited or not.
Yeah.
Instead of that, there is total confusion. So, the BJP, this is what I mean by a response to Hindutva. Now you ask me about my own books. I've written 24 books and my first book was a biography of Mirza Ghalib. But in recent times, I made an attempt to understand the remarkable profundity and the glory of a civilization associated with that philosophy and religion. I have a book on Adi Shankaracharya. I have a book called The Great Hindu Civilization, which I believe has been ignored or largely overlooked because of a feeling which was best summed up by the phrase of Jawaharlal Nehru. We must get rid of the dead wood of the past. And in a way, we threw the baby out with the bathwater. Yeah. Yes, there was superstition, prejudice, ritual, which needed to be reformed, but there were great achievements. And that too for thousands of years.
So you're saying the idea
how do I counter Hindutva?
Yeah.
I counter the ultra-right, narrow-minded Hindutva, which reduces Hinduism to its lowest common denominator and is exclusionist by knowing more about what Hinduism is. The problem is that those who are fighting for secularism have probably read the Ramayan as a comic. They haven't read it.
I'm just laughing because there is a certain Western deracinated liberal,
yes,
and I have to confess that probably I was educated the same way in terms of knowing the Western classics, but knowing everything about your own country's history from Amar Chitra Katha comics. Yeah. There is an element of searing truth in that comment.
You may think I'm being facetious, but I'm right. When I wrote Adi Shankaracharya, I had such a remarkable mind. And the whole Advait philosophy, which is being validated, and I'm not Dinanath Batra, being validated by science, this whole recognition of this cosmic consciousness as a first scientific principle from which all else follows. Now, my book is there for you.
Yes.
Now, there were educated people who otherwise had read everything possible, who didn't know who Shankaracharya is, where he lived, where he was born, what he achieved. The fact that he was born in Kerala, in Kaladi, and took Samadhi in Kedarnath and walked the length and breadth of India and set up 4 mutts, which is the civilizational map of India. People don't know. I wrote a book on Tulsidas, Ramcharitmanas. I mean, people haven't read it. But if today I am in a discussion with people who, for instance, seek for lack of knowledge to weaponize Sri Ram, I am able to quote chapter and verse from Tulsi's Ramcharitmanas and other texts to show that Sri Ram was the epitome of rectitude, the touchstone of correct behavior, of Saumya Swabhav, who fought for justice but always within the realms of Maryada. He was known as Maryada Purushottam Ram, and Krishna was Lila Purushottam. So, you have to understand the complexities of this great civilization and religion.
So you need the language of faith and history to fight for pluralism, which too few people fighting for it today have.
I believe that
Especially
even if you are an atheist, you need the knowledge of the fact that one of the founding statements 5,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago of Hinduism is Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti. The truth is one, wise people call it by different names. It is written on the arch as you enter parliaments that Udara Charitanam Vasudev Kutumbakam. For the big-hearted, the entire world is a family. Hinduism has survived as Sanatan, while many other religions and the civilizations associated with them have not. You know why? Because of its conquering eclecticism, because of its ability to retain its authenticity while being able to absorb other.
You took on, in your columns, Jairam Ramesh of the Congress Party for criticizing the Gita press. You spoke about the colonization of or a colonized, as it were, mindset, which may even be a subconscious response. What is it that the opposition is not getting right?
I'll tell you. For instance, inherently.
And even on Savarkar, you said you didn't agree with everything the Savarkar stood for, but this talk of a Hindu Rashtra was a very small part of what Savarkar actually argued. And that Savarkar, if I remember you correctly, was a revolutionary patriot, and that had to be acknowledged.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Because the problem with today's reflex secularism is that it's extremely shallow. And that is the weakness also of liberalism in India.
I think you called Jairam's response illiberal.
I would say ill-informed, because this is the reflex secularism. He issued a tweet based on one interpretation of what the founder of the Gita press had done, without understanding the remarkable body of work which the Gita press made accessible, of the great nuggets of wisdom of our past to millions of people. The contribution is immeasurable. Similarly, about Veer Savarkar. Veer Savarkar, to condemn him on a reflex basis is to forget that Mrs. Gandhi in 1970 issued a postage stamp honoring Veer Savarkar. And why? A man who spends 11 years plus in almost isolation, solitary confinement in the Kalapani of the Andamans. He was a revolutionary patriot. Yes. I do not agree, many people do not agree with the short polemic he wrote on Hindu Rashtra. But people conveniently forget that later he himself revised that And the greatest body of his work is on the need for social reform within Hinduism. He himself claimed to be an atheist. He was against what he called the Saat Bediyan, the seven fetters of Hinduism. And he wanted social reform. Even the BJP has conveniently forgotten that. So, you must judge Veer Savarkar not by removing, like one of the Congress leaders did, his portrait from the Andaman jails, or reflexively condemning him. That analytical ability and knowledge of the liberal class and of the reflex secularists is so obvious now that far from opposing Hindutva or ultra-right Hindu majoritarianism, they strengthen it. The irony is that.
So what is the counter language? What is the counter idea to the BJP today? Because you've clearly said the India Alliance is missing it. The Congress party is missing it. There is an old idea of the Congress in which I think you think the answers lie.
The best example is Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was a devout Hindu. In Johannesburg jail, please go through the list of books that he mentions he read. They were all on Hindu philosophy, Hindu texts. He knew his religion. At the same time, he had respect for other faiths. Now, in a country like ours, where even the Christians, which are 2% of the population, are more in size than the combined population of Hungary and Greece, or you have a minority, the largest minority, let's say the Muslims, 200 million of them, who are not geographically segregated, but who are spread, living cheek by jowl across the space of India. You have other minorities. For a country like India, Jawaharlal Nehru wrote in a letter to the Chief Minister in 1948 that coexistence is not an option, but a compulsion in India. And therefore, Mahatma Gandhi, apart from his inherent belief of respecting all faiths, also did it as an act of the only way of preserving the unity and integrity of India in an enlightened and civilized way. Today we have a situation that when Mohan Bhagwat meets with some Muslim intellectuals and goes to a masjid, he is trolled by his own ultra-right-wing followers for betraying Hinduism. The problem today is, and by the way, if you read my book, there are many redeeming features of the RSS also. In fact, people don't know that Jawaharlal Nehru in 1963 invited a contingent of the RSS to march in the Republic Day parade for the contribution they made in 1962 in the war against China. Jayaprakash Narayan have praised the discipline.
And during the emergency, they all worked together.
So the RSS is a far more, but today the ultra-right has gone, I think, beyond the control of the RSS and the BJP to organizations which are the fastest growing, like the Bajrang Dal. And I often joke that if one of those who are the new protectors of Hinduism are locked in a room and asked to write one page on Hinduism or Hindu civilization, before they are released, they'll probably spend their whole life in that room.
But then what is the answer to this kind of lumpenization? We spoke earlier of weaponization. There's also a lumpenization.
Yes, and that needs to be controlled. And I think when I wrote the book, The Great Hindu Civilization, I mean, I am open to a Sabhya Samvad, a dialogue with anyone. And I was talking to Mr. Dattatreya Hospale, who runs the RSS as the number 2 with Mr. Bhagwat. And he told me that, Pavanji, I've read your book, Akshara, verbatim, from page to page. And he, to my surprise, named the page number up to 300 and something. where he says that you have put forward our worldview in a manner that I greatly respect. But then he said, after that, you become critical. And I want to have a discussion with you on it. And I said, anytime. I become critical because today, that valid project of reclaiming our ancient past, of correcting the narrative of history, of rectifying some of the grievances of the Hindus, has been taken over by people who have no knowledge of Hinduism or its profundity or the civilization, but who are actually have only the swagger of power and the license to take law in their hands and abuse it when they want, because they feel they have the tacit backing of the center. They're no longer in control. This is my worry. This is my fear.
Let's talk in the end about looking ahead at politics. You've made this impassioned argument both about the misappropriation of Hinduism and the inability of those taking it on to have a cogent, informed, even understanding of religion before you can take on those who are distorting it. Do you believe, looking ahead, the opposition, you believe, in its current form doesn't have the counter? You believe, I imagine, that Prime Minister Modi is cruising towards a third term. Is that, I'm summarizing here, but are you correct? Yes. Okay.
That's the conventional wisdom.
That's the conventional wisdom. That's what people believe.
That is most likely to happen.
There is talk of a north-south divide. There are those in the Congress sort of ecosystem who believe that this is the answer for the opposition. Do you see an answer there? And how do you correlate it, since we're talking about Hinduism, when Udayanidhi Stalin gets up and talks about a Sanatan Dharma? He's playing to the local politics of Tamil Nadu, but they are having ripple effects everywhere else for the opposition.
You see, first of all, a north-south divide in civilizational terms is impossible. India is an ancient civilization. You'll be surprised that in the Puranas, you can almost to the last mile, there is a map of India. And the south and the north are united in the sense of the broad parameters of that civilizational unity. But yes, the north-south divide is being talked about because the ruling party is largely, probably stronger in the north and west of India and has made fewer inroads in the south. The entire political movement in Tamil Nadu started with Periyar in 1925 when he founded the Self-Respect Party, which later became the Justice Party, which later became the Dravida Kazhagam, which later became the Dravida Munitra Kazhagam, which later divided into the AIDMK. Now, what is the reality of Tamil Nadu? 81% of Tamils are Hindus. Or 89%, I think. I must correct myself. You can check.
We'll check, yeah.
Of which 70% are OBCs and 20% are Dalits. So the whole movement of Tamil politics was not so much against Hinduism, but against the form of Hinduism as practiced, which was oppressive and discriminatory. And therefore the original name of Periyar, the fountainhead of Tamil politics, Self-Respect Party.
Yeah.
That movement still continues. So when Stalin says that Sanatan is, for all the expletives they use, which I believe were completely wrong,
yeah,
he is not condemning Hinduism because Tamil Nadu is the greatest center of Hinduism. All our temples, from Thiruvalluvar to everything, that is so much. Even Shankaracharya came from the south.
That's right.
Ramanujam came from the south.
Yeah.
So it can't be against Hinduism, but it was talking about the need for reform in Hinduism as practiced, which is discriminatory to the bulk of those who are Hindus. Because Hinduism must be the only religion which discriminates among its own followers. Look at the condition of the Dalits in India. Now, in the North, if you interpret any critique of Hinduism as being anti-Hindu, like today, any criticism of the government is often conflated with being anti-national, then you are creating a divide where none needs to exist, because you cannot ever say that in the North you have a monopoly of Hinduism. In Tamil Nadu, they can quote chapter and text to you of Sanskrit verses, including Tamil ones, and Tamil is probably older than Sanskrit, on Hinduism. Now, these are the questions which need to be dealt with sensitively. It's not politics. Let us take the issue of language.
Yeah.
Hindi is today the fastest growing language in the country. According to the National Census of 2011, some 56% of Indians already understand or speak Hindi. And some over 40%, 45%
are able to write it.
Write it. You will be surprised that the largest number of centers for the learning of Hindi in India, including private ones, are in Tamil Nadu.
I didn't know that.
Now, here is a situation where in an organic way, without any imposition, languages are spreading. Then you start to, in a way, as perceived by them, impose Hindu, which is not the national language,
right,
but which is the official language. There will be a reaction. So you are creating the divide now.
Yeah.
So these are things which need to be handled with sensitivity.
Well, finally, let's end where we started. Your plans. You said, you, Prashant Kishor, others, I don't know who the others are, may come together to form a new party. You have yourself been in two parties, the JDU and the Trinamool. Prashant Kishor has consulted on multiple party campaigns, including Mr. Modi's, the Congress, Arvind Kejriwal, KCR, and so on. If you had to define the politics of yourself and Prashant Kishor today, if you had to define what sets you apart today?
First of all, we are friends.
Yes.
He calls me an elder brother, and I look upon him as that as well. I have great respect for what he's attempting now in Bihar. I'm a minor accessory.
How would you define those politics? Because it's clearly seeking a space that is not the opposition space and not the BJP space,
yes,
right? What is that space?
It's transformational politics.
Explain that.
Transformational politics is where you actually relate governance to the needs of the people and have a plan to implement it within a certain time frame to change the quality of lives of people.
So it's delivery-based politics?
And that is what is needed. We have a surfeit of politics.
BJP would argue, wo to hum bhi kar rahe hain. What makes you different?
No. Perhaps there can be different ways of doing it. Perhaps there can be different models of doing it more efficiently. Perhaps there can be greater people's involvement in the policies. And perhaps there can be a vision of India, a narrative, where all of this is happening, while at the same time preserving the democratically inclusive idea of India. So there is scope for another narrative, and there is scope for another phase. Who emerges, I don't know. I am saying that what Prashant is doing now for almost 1.5 years is in many ways unprecedented, and it requires exceptional dedication and hard work.
Okay, we will leave it there. I was struck by the fact that you've written 24 books. I'm looking forward to the 25th one.
Yeah, that is going to be a compendium of Indian thought.
How interesting.
From the Rig Veda to almost Osho.
So for those who grew up reading their Indian thought from Amar Chitra Katha, we look forward to that book. Thank you so much, Pavan Varma. It's been a delight. Thank you.
Great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.